We have to go to a quote, and I'm gonna kind of skip through this here because I don't want to, waste almost 4 minutes of the show on this. However, Nick Wright went on First Things First, and I get how aggregation works, and I get how hot takes work. A lot of people accuse me of being a hot take guy. I'm not a hot take because it's not a hot take if it's the right take. My takes are measured and often are proven correct. Nick Wright's take is batshit crazy. We're going to go to it real quick because they are doing a predictions week on their show, and they talked about the NFC East, and Nick Wright decided that was the day he was going to shove his foot very far in his mouth and maybe down his own throat, where it's actually going to fly out his own ass, where he talks about the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're going to go to that now.
I think this will be mostly unanimous. The New York Giants.
Yeah,
Giants are number 4.
I actually think the
So we're gonna skip past the Giants. He gives all the reasons why the Giants stink, because they do. They stink. Who's the number 3 team? Pray tell.
Dable. I do know about Daniel Jones. They're going to be, I think, in contention. Sorry, Greg.
Watch him.
Greg, did you see? You saw Daniel Jones' preseason.
Yeah.
Let's scrub a little bit.
Number 1 quarterback in next year's draft, and that's how they can turn the page. This
number 3
is where there's going to be gasps. At number 3 is the Philadelphia Eagles. They've lost 6 of the last 7 games. They had a bottom 4 defense across the board in the NFL last season. They lost a future Hall of Famer, the leader of their team, the best player on their offense. Their coach and their quarterback don't get along. Their coach was known for one thing, kind of being a jerk on the sidelines, and now he's been like, no, I'm going to stop that. If anyone else could have told him that was a bad idea years ago, classic 2, once again.
All right, so let's just break down some of those concerns really quickly. Are they fair? Because I've seen people on Twitter getting very worked up about it. Are the concerns fair? Did the Eagles lose 6 of their last 7 games last year? Yes. Did the Eagles lose arguably their most important player on offense in center Jason Kelce, who's a future for first ballot Hall of Famer? Yes. Do we know for a fact that Cam Jurgens is going to be able to go in and be 85% of what Kelce was? No, we do not know that. He didn't bring that up, but that's kind of the implication. Do we have some kind of belief potentially that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni don't get along, or that there's a rift between the coach and quarterback? Yes, it is something that has been brought up on many occasions. I think in some ways has been overblown. It did feel like an overcourse correction where we saw the video of them on the golf cart together blasting music. Is there a possibility that there's still some tension because Jalen Hurts might have felt like his guy Brian Johnson got scapegoated last year and maybe believe that Nick Sirianni also deserved to lose his job? Maybe. Could Nick Sirianni be frustrated with Jalen Hurts if he tried to play through injury or he wasn't as efficient as he could have been? Yes. Those are all fair. They're all fair critiques. Is he right that Sirianni's been viewed as a dick? Yes. Does it get under the skin of the opposition? Yes. Is it also bulletin board material for other teams? Yes. So far, Nick Wright hasn't really unleashed a hot take other than saying they're going to be 3rd. What else did he have to say? Why else are people upset?
And all of those things, they come into the season on the hot seat. They have 2 great receivers. I know that. I don't know much else about this football team other than their GM loves the acquisition of, I knew who that guy is. Jahan Dotson? Oh, yeah, I remember him.
He's good.
Oh, is he?
As a third receiver.
Okay. Is he?
As a third
so. Based on what?
Well, Sam Howell?
Based on what? I'm just telling.
Greg
so
liked
he's the
him.
third receiver. Okay.
All right, so offensive. Let's break that down really quick. The Eagles have 2 great receivers. Yes, we all know that. They have arguably the best wide receiver duo in the entire NFL. If you want, you could put them top 2 or top 3 in the best wide receiver tandems. Dotson could be a nice addition. Is that something that I would build part of my argument around? No. Is arguing the merit of Dotson as a 3rd receiver really smart when you're trying to make the pitch for why they're the 3rd best team in the NFC East? No. Here's a question. Here's a legitimate thing. If you're going to try to take Nick Wright at his word, which most people aren't, I will try to be open-minded about it. To say that the only thing you know about the Eagles is that they have a really good wide receiver duo is not fair. They still have one of the best offensive lines in football. Yes, a lot of that was predicated on Jason Kelce. Cam Jurgens played on this line. He just didn't play center, right? One has to assume that line is still going to be solid. So you do know that. You know that Lane Johnson and Mailata are very reliable. You know that this offensive line has the ability to potentially go out and perform well. 4 of the 5 starters are back. Cool. You know that. You also happen to know that they have one of the most impactful running backs in the entire league in the backfield with Jalen Hurts. You also know that Jalen Hurts 2 years ago was the runner-up for MVP, went toe-to-toe in a Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. Now, you can have questions about the defensive side of the ball, which is why I have plenty of questions. Does he get there? Let's just see if we can make a little bit of an argument for Nick Wright.
Okay, that's great. I'm telling you right now that there's a reason he was available from a team within their division. A team that, by the way, I have finishing second. The Washington Commanders.
Wow.
So the argument for the Commanders is simple, which is...
I'm not even going further on this clip. So this is where he loses me, because I think that a lot of the comments that he brought up are fair. They're all fair critiques of the Eagles. They're not fair enough to make them the third best team in the NFC East, if you want to look at it that way, or the second worst team in the NFC East. No, like he has them missing the playoffs. He didn't even mention the defensive side of the ball. That's where all of the question marks are. They're going to rely on ridiculously young defensive backs to make a significant impact. They're going to have to hope that Darius Slay is able to be some version of big play Slay. They're going to have to hope maybe that if Bradbury is going to be on the roster because he just makes too much, that he's going to be more than just a shell of himself. They're going to have to hope that CJ can stay healthy, which he could not do in Detroit. They're going to have to hope that their linebacking core that has a ton of question marks performs. They're going to have a lot of questions about whether or not Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are able to actually be big, impactful interior linemen. There are plenty of questions around this team. Can they replace what is supposed to be the productivity, or what the productivity was 2 years ago of Hassan Reddick? Will Huff be able to be that? There are tons of questions on the defensive side of the ball. He could have made those arguments, and I maybe could have met him somewhere at the Eagles finish second in the division. But third behind the commies, stop. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely patently absurd. That's where he loses me. But it got aggregation. It got attention. It got exactly what it was meant to get. And here's the thing. When you're on a national show like that, your job is each and every day to draw eyes and viewers to your show for the ratings, to the YouTube channel, which is monetizable, to social media, which is also monetizable, and to ultimately try to pull people away from the industry leader over on ESPN, or to pull eyes away from YouTube creators. That's his job. He succeeded. Now, there's a difference between what Nick Wright does and like what a Colin Cowherd does. I think Colin Cowherd is the best radio host. If you, it's kind of tricky. He is a radio guy. I think that Colin Cowherd is the most talented radio guy in the country. I do. A lot of people don't like Colin Cowherd. I think he's fantastic. Is he the most insightful about each and every team and the nuances of everything? No. Does he get people talking? Yes. Do I think he's an idiot? No. I think he's actually a very smart guy. I think he makes compelling points. And I think ultimately it's why he's had the longevity that he's had. And it's why he's gotten the foothold that he is to even run his own venture while still doing his show through Fox Sports. So you put all those things together, like Cowherd to me is like a totally different animal. Nick Wright is kind of like your worst case scenario of what a hot take artist can look like on the national level. And yet he has a prominent role on that network. And yet people are talking about him. They're talking about his show. Ultimately, I think he's absolutely wildly off base. And maybe not because of having the Eagles third, but the rationale for why the Eagles are third.